Anything that you've gone through, anything that you're struggling with, any disappointment, any pain, any hurt, any trauma, didn't come to break you. It came to make you.
It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marked by dust and sweat and blood.
Welcome to the Men in the Arena podcast, where we interview specialists in the realm of manhood. Each of our guests is an expert in their chosen field or cause as it relates to men. Our conviction is to call you into the arena of manhood, call you out of the faceless, nameless bleachers, and call you up to be the best version of you. Because when a man gets it, everyone wins. Enjoy today's episode.
Men in the Arena Army, we salute you. Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode of the Men in the Arena podcast. This is Jim Ramos. I'm here with Dale Culver. And guys, thanks so much for listening to this show. You bless us by joining us on our podcast. And I want to encourage you guys, go and write a review. Send us some emails at info@meninthearena.org. We love to hear your hero stories. We like to highlight those hero stories. And whenever we do highlight you, we also want to send you some swag just for being a man in the arena. And so, Dale, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome, Jim.
Hey, I'm doing really good today, too, man. Had a late night, had to drive to the airport, pick Shanna up, and got home at 2 in the morning, but I'm a little bit jacked. I'm all jacked up on Mountain Dew. Anyway,
Mountain
so,
Dew.
man, I'm
you
ready.
You don't drink Mountain Dew.
I know, I drink Americanos. Anyway, I got to tell you something, Dale. I am so excited about this guy that we're having on the show. He is a true hero for men in our country. And, a funniest story, on March 31st, somebody shared a post on social media, and it was a picture of this guy with another dude and 12 young boys. I'm going to say they're fourth graders. Maybe they were third graders. They're all in suits, 11 little black guys and one little white guy, and they're in their suits and ties, and they're smiling. I mean, they just look super professional. And this post was highlighting this guy and what he's doing for young boys, specifically boys that don't have fathers. And when I saw that post, something inside me leapt, and I said, I've got to get this guy in my show. I reached out to him, and he's a full-blown, committed follower of Jesus Christ, which was a risk. I didn't know if this guy was what the heck this guy believed. So this guy's a radical follower of Jesus. He just wrote a book on the topic that we're going to cover. I'm so excited about this guy. And if you are a man who has a heart for the fatherless, this is your episode. I'm telling you what, guys, we are going to unlock 21 words of wisdom for fathers that you are going to love. And before I do that, hey, Dale, do you have a man word for me today?
I do, Jim.
Wow, you sounded scary.
Well, thank you.
Not scary in a good way. Scary in like get in the cars, kids. This crazy man's in the park.
So are you guessing, or am I just throwing it out there?
I think the word is fatherless or orphan or something like that.
Dude, you know I'm way more vanilla
you
than
are
that.
So vanilla.
You know that I'm way more vanilla than that.
I know you are. How about fathers?
Okay, you're going to die. It is gentlemen.
Oh, well played. Well played.
I thought for sure you're going to guess it and then ridicule me for being vanilla. Yeah, so.
Well, you're still vanilla, but good job.
No, I was raised in a day when we had to call everybody that was our elders Mr. and Mrs. We referred to them as their last name. We were respectful. Man, I never said anything or did actions that were inappropriate around somebody that was older than me. I just was taught that respect. And so nowadays it's like, when I was youth pastoring and I'd hear kids saying stuff, and I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, I'm old. Yeah. You're going to talk like that to me? Seriously, dude. You got some jacked up parents. So, I think it's very important to be a gentleman. You're opening the door for the ladies. They're letting ladies go through first. When it's time to eat, the ladies go through first. You wait till the end. You might get scraps, but you're going to be a gentleman and let others go.
No, that's really good. One of the things I taught I have 3 sons, and one of the things that I did that I thought was a very well played on my part was I taught them something that is never practiced with young men today. I taught them to grip a man's hand firmly but not too hard. Do not limp wrist it. Firm handshake, look him in the eye and say, it's nice to meet you. And man, my kids, that's what they do. And I'm telling you what, in this day and age, when a young man walks in the room with confidence, looks you in the eye, shakes your hand, that says, I have been taught and trained what a man should be like. And that's what I'm so excited about today. We've got a guy on our show. Oh, do we have a hero story, Dale?
We do, Jim.
All right.
A friend of mine.
I'm kind of fired up about getting Kenny on here.
Yeah. I say a friend of mine, but every time I see somebody write a review, that's my friend. You know, you're all my friends. But this guy, Frank, says, read this book. Right there, guys. Read this book, he says. He says, no, digest this book. I am 74 years old and sincerely wish I had this book in my youth. The chapter entitled Sharpen Your Face is worth the cost of the book, and the one on finishing well is a close second. Every father of a son should read this book with his sons. I can't wait to recommend to my men's group that they get a copy so we can study it together. Thank you, Jim Ramos. I love it when you write a book that's just a read and it becomes a Bible study, or I guess not a Bible study, but it becomes a study. It's a read. We have study materials, but I guess you can study this. It's good stuff.
Well, hey, I want to say this. Hey, thanks, Frank. Hit us up. We'll send you some swag. But, guys, this is the book that we're highlighting today. This is the book we want you to read and get. This book right here. That book right there. So I appreciate the kind words, Frank, but we're all about this book today. Both books deal with a similar topic, how to be a man and how to be a father. And so I'm excited to bring our new friend on the show, Kenneth Joyner. So Kenneth Joyner is the director and co-founder of Boys with a Purpose, which is a nonprofit after-school mentoring organization for young boys. The organization has been serving in the Charleston, South Carolina area since 2016, which is when that picture I saw on Facebook was actually taken. So it's kind of cool that 5 years later, I'm able to reach this guy. Growing up without his father sparked Kenny's passion for helping young men to develop their gifts and to ultimately find their life's purpose. In 2016, as we mentioned earlier, this journey led him to Memminger Elementary School. Is that the right pronunciation? Memminger Elementary School, where he helped to start an organization he now runs called Boys with a Purpose. He's the author of our topic for today, his book, Without a Father, From Fear to Faith. Man, it's a pleasure to have you on, Kenny. You are a hero.
No, man, you're the hero, Jim, man. I'm just honored, really. I'm just honored to be with you guys and just to be able to talk about just a much needed topic in our time now. And again, just to be able to empower men. I believe that if we can empower men, we can solve 90% of our problems right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, just coming across that picture that went viral, how many shares did that picture have? Do you know? Had to have been in the thousands.
Yeah, it was up there, and it's been circulating for a while. And we get just repost and repost and repost. But that's really what it's all about, and that's how I know that just one man, right, one person. Can change the world, and I believe that 100%.
Now, Kenny, help me out here. So, you're a superhero at night, but during the daytime, you're an elementary school teacher?
Well, I was teaching, taught at Memminger Elementary School, taught middle school and elementary. Had a great time doing that, but now I'm currently working with a company called Capturing Kids' Hearts. And I get to travel the world. I get to train teachers on a process of how to better relate to their students, right? We know our kids are dealing with a lot of social, emotional things right now, as well as obviously COVID. But I get to go in and help those educators really have that great connection with the kid, because I saw that was one of the issues that our boys were having. They didn't really have a connection with their educators. And once we can get that connection, we believe that, hey, if you have a child's heart, you have a child's head.
Man, that's really good. I really appreciate that. I raised 3 sons. They're 27, 25, and 23 today. But in elementary school, I think there were 1 or 2 teachers that were men in the whole school. So I really appreciated those men immensely, and I really appreciated the teachers who were women who understood boys. And that wasn't always the case. And so to get a guy like you in there, man, you're a gem for these young men, and I am just really excited to hear more about what you're doing. But before we do, you take a lot of time in your book to do this. And so can you just take a few minutes here and just share your personal journey with our guys so they can get a context for where you're coming from?
Well, my burden is for men, and it came because I grew up without my father. I grew up in D.C. My mother raised 4 kids by herself, and so that kind of started our journey. Just trying to figure out like what this whole thing was about and why my dad wasn't in my life. I would go to football games and basketball games, and everybody else's father would show up, but my dad wasn't there, and so it left a void, right? That leaves a hole in your heart, and you try to fill it with everything else, and you fill it with you fill it with drugs, you fill it with sex, you fill it with alcohol or whatever the case may be, but that nothing can fill that void of the absence of a father. And because you don't have your father, it leads you on a path, that led me on a place where, I wasn't serious about school initially. I didn't know my full potential. I didn't understand, my gifting or anything. I was just out here, really, I was just floating, trying to do the best I could. But luckily God had other plans. And once I met Christ and, really began to see that life wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me. And all of the things that I had been through and all of the pain and all of the suffering, went through a lot of domestic violence in the home. We struggled a lot with poverty. There's even a chapter in the book about us actually getting set out, and so, but all of that stuff that happened to me, I realize now, didn't come to break me. It came to make me. It came to make me.
Oh.
Yeah, it came to make me into the best version of myself. And so I would say that to every person out there. Anything that you've gone through, anything that you're struggling with, any disappointment, any pain, any hurt, any trauma, didn't come to break you. It came to make you into the best version of yourself. But you have to be in a sense of, you have to be able to use that, right? Everything is a lesson and a blessing. That's what it comes down to. And so now, I said, God called and said, okay, hey, listen, I need you to, all the things that you've been through, I need you to help other people who are feeling that same void, and I need you to put it in a book, and I need you to do that. And then I need you to really get in this game, right? And that's the biggest piece. You'll hear me talk about getting in the game. We're actually going to release a video soon about that. But getting in the game is, I hear a lot of people talking about what needs to be done about our issues with the absence of fathers, but there are very few people in the game. You guys, Jim, you, Dale, you guys are in the game, right? Not on the sidelines talking. And here's what I know. Only the people in the game affect the game, right? So
wow.
If Tom Brady doesn't play, Tampa Bay doesn't win, right? It's only the players that are in the game that affect the game. The people on the sidelines shouting and screaming, even the fans, they don't dictate the game. It's only the people in the game. And so God just said, okay, if you really want to make a difference in young men's lives, he said, Kenny, you got to get in the game. And you got to use everything that you've been through, all your pain, all your disappointment, to help change lives and steer kids towards their purpose. So,
well, it's interesting that you say that, Kenny. That's powerful, powerful stuff. He didn't come to break you. He came to make you. It goes back to something I say, that God turns your mess into your message. You said something that was interesting. You said without a father, there is a void. It leaves a hole in your heart. Nothing can fill that void, the void of an absent father. And then you said something else. I'm gonna ask you to go deeper into this. You said only people in the game affect the game. Wouldn't you agree, though, that fathers who are not in the game affect the game negatively?
Yes, I would.
So they do affect the game.
Yes.
They just affect the game negative. They're like a horrible referee.
Right. right.
It's
a bad call every time, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what we say. We don't tell men to get in the game. We tell them to get in the arena, which I think is exactly what you're saying here. Now, you had a question. You said something earlier. You said, I wasn't able to realize my full potential, but at some point you did. And so my question then, Kenny, is who were the catalysts to unlock your best version?
First of all, it would have to be God. That's first. It would have to be my mom, second. And I've got two of the best friends. We've been knowing each other now 28 years. Pastor Larry Page and Brother Ron Pinkney have been my armor bearers. They have been there. They've been paracletes for me. They have been, they have been the people who have stood in the gap for me to be able to, one, save me from myself, and to be patient with me, so I could get to this place. And of course, my wife, she has just been a pillar. She taught me how to really love, how to be vulnerable, how to be transparent, and those are the things those are the people that I really can hang my hat on, to say, you know what, if it had not been for those people, and of course I could go and I could say my grandfather, who stood in the gap in the absence of my father, my great grandmother as well, all of my, I have 7 aunts, so
oh man,
yeah, so they are just, they've been really. I was the first male child of 7 girls. My grandfather had 7 girls. My mother was the oldest, and then I came along as the first boy. So you can imagine how spoiled I was.
You were the king, baby.
I know,
you were
right?
The king. Oh man, hey, so I want to dive into a couple things here. I want to dive into your book because I do want to say this about your book. I read about 40 to 50 books a year for different things. And when guys write a first book, it's usually this story of their life, and there's really not a lot there. But what you did is you were able to incorporate your story with wisdom nuggets. So I appreciated that. You were able to weave your story so it became more than just your story. You were able to turn your story, your history, into his story.
I love
so
that.
I appreciate that. In your book, you said this is alarming, but I'm going to read out of your book, and I want to ask you a question. You said every day, more than 47% of African American children, 23% of Hispanic children, 13% of Caucasian children, and 7% of Asian children go to bed without in a single family home. That's like 40% of our country. According to the data by fatherhood.org and U.S. Census Bureau, 1 out of 4 children, so 25%. 1 out of 4 children live without a father. And then you said this: where are the strong and courageous men that God and our society are looking for? Gone are the days of traditional families, which were led by strong and courageous men who placed an underlying loyalty on family values. Gone are the days when children would meet their fathers at the door after work, after a hard day's work. So this really inspires you to launch your organization. And I want you to tell us a little bit more about Boys with a Purpose and what you do in this organization.
Well, again, that verse, just sums up, again, as you said, what we do, because with that void, again, our young men particularly are looking to try to fill it with something, right? What we want to make sure is that along this journey, whether you're 5 or you're 55, right, you're getting the tools that you need to take the next step, to grow, to become the better version of yourself.
Yes.
And so what we do is we start with, of course, who are you, right? Who are you as a man, right? As a young man first, right? So we want to make sure that your identity is rooted not only in what society says, right, but your identity is rooted in Christ, right? Because
yes,
beyond a shadow of a doubt, I think that, we want to build strong men, but I think what happens is we want to give them everything except Christ. Right? We want to give them academics, we want to give them character, we want to give them etiquette and all that, but you can't do this life without Christ. So we start with making sure that they understand who they are, right? What value that you have right now. I stop asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because what it says is you're nothing right now. No, you are something. Yeah, you are something right now. You're valuable right now at 5, right now at 10, right now at 20. You're valuable. You may not be where you want to be, but right now you can bring something to the table. And so we start there, and then we go into character, right? As you talked about, shaking hands, looking a man in his eye, right? Back in the day, that's all it was. Your word was everything. Right? That's how we bartered. That's how we traded. That's how we got, right? So you had to give me your word. You had to shake my hand, look me in the eye, and I had to know that you had the character and the integrity to do what you said you were going to do, right? And now we can tweet anything we want, right? And we can say anything we want. We can recant, right? Or whatever the case may be. But we want to teach that honor. We want to teach that integrity. So we start there. We start with, who are you? Then we start with, what are you? Like the character of a man. What does that look like, right? And part of that is really making sure we debunk some of those myths, right? That, men can't cry. We got to be tough, right? And we do, right? We do. But we also have to make sure that we're in a place where we're dealing with that sensitivity, right? We're dealing with all of those issues, because what happens is if we don't, then they're devoid of all of the tools that they really, really need, right? And so that's what we try to do. And so as we go forward, teaching that character, teaching that etiquette, teaching those those character traits that are really going to make them know that, like, I'm put here for a reason, right? I'm put here for a reason. And that's when we start talking about purpose. Everything has a purpose. God didn't make any mistakes when he made you. And although your father is not here, right, then you still have something. You have an assignment while you're here on this planet, right? And then we want you to kind of start focusing in on and understanding that at an early age, right? And so I believe dropping in all of these elements at an early age will start the train moving, right? And we'll start to push kids in the right direction.
So how long does this go, Kenny, and how often do you meet?
So we go, it's an after school program.
Yeah.
We go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday was our initial piece. We go 3 to 6. And we've been doing that, again, just every week. And
holy cow, that's a lot. You're putting a lot of information to these guys. And so how many kids have filtered through the elementary school under this program?
I would say since 2016, we've probably had close to about 250 kids come
Holy cow. Do you realize that 250 kids who grow up and raise families, you multiply that, that's thousands that you've impacted.
Yeah, well, we're trying.
Because each young boy who grows up to be a man, D.L. Moody years ago did a revival service, and his wife, he got home and his wife said, "Hey, how'd it go?" And he said, "It was okay. I led 2.5 people to the Lord." And she said, "Oh, 2 adults and a child?" And he said, "No, 2 children and an adult." Because when you impact a child, you impact somebody and you change the trajectory of their life. And so that young boy who you've trained is going to impact 5, who will impact 20, who will impact, and I'm going to go back to your program and back to your book. You said something in your book that, in my opinion, it almost felt like your war cry. It almost felt like this. It felt so guttural when I read it. I went, "Oh, okay, this is the statement right here." It's like the drop the mic, right? And I want you to speak to this. And here's what you said. You said, "You're special, and you're going to do something with your life." To me, when you wrote that to your audience, it almost read like you were staring at yourself in the mirror. Can you walk us through the guttural nature of that statement?
That statement came from my aunts, right? Those are when I was going through domestic violence in my home, I would have to go stay with my grandparents, and my aunts were there. And so even though I was going through those things, they would always speak that life into me to say that you're special. You're going to do something special with your life. And so I use that. I always hear that in my head no matter where I go. When I get off the plane to Mississippi and I train teachers, when I'm in California or wherever, I hear that voice ringing in my head. And then now, you're right, that is my war cry to every young man and every young person, period, that comes across my path. Like, you're special, right? There's nobody on the planet like you. There's nobody on the planet that can do what you do. And I want you to know that, because a lot of kids, all they hear is you're not good enough. You're just like your father in a negative context. You're never going to be anything. You're never going to amount to anything. So I always want to bring that positivity, and I always want to speak life, because that's really what happened to me. Somebody saw more in me than I saw in myself.
And isn't that the secret and the beauty of man on man, as far as a young man helping a younger man to see something in himself he doesn't see? You know, one of our friends, Jeff Vogt, who has a ministry called Cave Time, he's out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, offered up a quote that his dad would say to him often to encourage him. He would just simply say this: "You belong here. Wherever you get to, you're worthy, you belong, you're qualified, you've got what it takes." And I don't know, man, Kenny, one of the greatest things a man can say to another man, when I say a man to another man, I mean an older guy saying to a younger guy, is, "You've got what it takes." Do you see that the kids you work with really need to hear that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because again, they see and they hear so much negativity in their surroundings, in their environment. They definitely need that. They need that encouragement. They need that reinforcement and the assurance that, you know what, all of the character training and everything that I'm going through in Boys with a Purpose eventually is going to pay off for me, right? It will eventually manifest, and I'll feel better about myself, so that, as you said, I'll be able to now help 5, and then somebody else will help 10. So absolutely, they definitely need to hear that, and I think that it does my heart well when they say those things, like, thank you for Boys with a Purpose. Thank you for, we're getting ready to celebrate at the end of the year, at the end of June. We're just going to bring all of our boys together, get to the park, just have some food and fun, man. And families are going to come out, and we just want to celebrate. They've been through so much with this virtual learning and everything this year. They've persevered. I said, man, hey, let's reward them. Let's really throw a big party. So, yeah, absolutely. Just trying to make sure that they know, as you said, that they are valuable, they do belong, and that they can accomplish something great in their lives.
Now, are you in other schools or just at Memminger?
I'm just at Memminger now, but we're getting ready to move forward to where we're going to pull other schools in, and in our partnership with Boeing. And actually, I'm actually meeting with them next week. But so we want to create this pipeline. So it's Boys with a Purpose. It is the College of Charleston. We'll bring mentors in from the College of Charleston, and then Boeing has a program where in 11th and 12th grade, our boys will intern with them, and then if they decide to go work for Boeing, Boeing will pay for the 4-year degree, the master's, and the PhD.
Wow, that's huge. I envision guys listening to this podcast from all over the country or world saying, I want to bring this into my school. I'm an elementary school teacher. I realize I've got the odds stacked against me. I'm working with 95% women, and I've got 45% of the school is boys, and we need to do something. So that's why I asked the question, Kenny. So, hey, I want to jump into your book, and you list, I really enjoy doing this, and I read books because I'm an author as well. And, you always have little typos you miss, right?
Right.
And so your book, you said, I'm going to just highlight this. I cracked myself up when I read this. I structured the book around 20 core principles being a father figure, which isn't necessarily about being the biological father, but it's about playing the role as father figure. And then when I was going through the book, I found 21. So there's one there's one that's highlighted and not numbered. So I'm like, oh yes, I should get a free flower basket or fruit basket for that. Actually, give Dale the flower basket. I want the fruit.
You want the fruit. Okay, I got you.
So you have 21 things in here that are words of wisdoms for fathers. And I just think, or father figures. And I want to just highlight each one, read a statement about each one, and I want you to just respond why this made the cut, all right?
Got it.
So, and this will be, guys, this will be in show notes. If you want to get our show notes, I send those out via a blog every week. You can sign up for that blog or our equipping blast. The blog goes into the equipping blast at info@meninthearena.org. So these will be listed in that. If you want to get them, you need to go there. So words of wisdom number 1 is know who you are. You've already hit on this, and you said don't waste time. Read God's word and find out who you really are and where he wants to take you. Say this daily: I matter and I'm more than enough. Will you unpack that?
All my life I've struggled with those two things.
Yeah.
Do I matter and am I enough, right? And I think a lot of people struggle with those things, especially when you grow up without that foundation of your father and what he could actually bring to you. And so I wanted every young man to know and every young person to know that you do matter. You do count, right? And just as you said, wherever you are, right, you belong there.
Yes.
Right? You belong there. And I fought with myself a lot about that because even when I became a teacher, it was hard, it was difficult, and I was like, man, am I doing enough, right? Or what? But again, knowing who I am in Christ gives me those two things, that I do matter and that I am more than enough. But when you don't have the foundation of what God says about you, you begin to believe what the world says.
No, that is so true. We had John Eldridge on our podcast speaking about his classic book, Wild at Heart, and he said the number one question men are asking themselves is, do I have what it takes? And men, if you're listening right now, the answer is yes, you do.
Yeah.
Because the God who made you made no one else in this universe like you.
That's right.
And only you can be the best version of you by radically committing your life to Jesus Christ. No matter where you are, if you're driving your car, pull over and radically commit your life to Jesus Christ right now and let him make you into the man that you are. That's the only way you're going to get there. So guys, words of wisdom number 2, which is, and I thought this was so powerful, Kenny. We tend to just kind of blow over this, but why is forgiveness so powerful? You wrote this: bitterness at its core destroys the soul, but forgiveness lights a path for hope for all who dare to embrace it. And I think that must be a massive problem with young boys without daddies in the home. Talk to me about this learning to forgive and how guys can go about doing that.
Well, I think that you never want to live with regret.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. You never want to live with regret. And I had lived with a lot of regret in the fact that me and my father didn't have the relationship that I always desired. And that bitterness held me back from actually going to try to fix it, right? And some people would say, oh, well, if the father is absent, it should be his job to go. The child shouldn't have to go to the father. Let me say this. When something is broken and both parties know, it's it's somebody's responsibility to go fix it, right? And now I'm not 15 anymore, right? I'm 30, right?
Yeah.
So I can't use that. And so that forgiveness for me personally, right? And me and my father, it was almost 40 years before we actually reconciled. But here's what it did for me. One, it freed me up to understand that I could have had that 10 years earlier had I just stepped up and said, you know what, I'm going to go to him. I'm going to go to him. And when I did go to him, because I had to go to him about, because of the book, we were able to reconcile.
Wow.
He was able to tell me exactly how he felt. He answered all my questions truthfully. And some of the things that I was thinking for years wasn't even the reality, right? Because when we don't connect, right? I play a script in my head, what he's thinking. He plays a script in his head, what I'm thinking, and we never communicate. But when we got together, one of the things that really came out was that my father always loved me. And I never thought that, right?
Wow.
But we never had that conversation. But when we did, um, I was able to see that. And so if you forgive, if you learn to forgive, because that cancer will eat away at you, it won't eat away at the other person, right? If you learn to forgive, you are now on the path to redemption.
Well, that's important to understand with unforgiveness. You called it a cancer. It will eat you away. That's why Jesus said, if you don't forgive others when they sin against you, I won't forgive you, because he wants your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And if part of your heart, mind, soul, or strength is given to somebody else through unforgiveness, they own a piece of your heart. And the sad thing is, Kenny, the people that own you are the ones you don't want to own you.
I know, right?
It's like pathetic. So you've got to let it go. And so you made a comment, Kenny, that I really respect. And you said, man, I was 30. I was a man. Yeah, something is broken. Someone has to fix it. And so what would you say to the guys that are 30s and their 40s that are broken guys because they're still blaming a fatherless upbringing? What would you say to that 30 to 40-year-old guy who's blaming his his estranged father instead of taking responsibility for their own lives?
I would say that one, I totally understand why you're doing it, but here's the key. If 2020 didn't teach us anything, it taught us that one, we're not in control, and two, tomorrow truly is not promised. So
yeah.
If you don't want to die with the regret, you have to now take the first step to going to fix it. Because when I was younger and I went through domestic violence, I was angry because I was 7, 8, 9, and I couldn't do anything to stop my stepfather. When I got older, I could do something.
Yes.
And it's the same thing now. When you're 15, when you're 12, no, you can't do anything. You're 30 now, right? You cannot lean on that crutch anymore. Throw that crutch away and walk the path that God wants you to walk to redemption.
Man, that's a tweetable quote right there. Throw that crutch away and walk. It sounds like the man at the pool of Bethesda, right?
There you go.
Where Jesus said, in fact, I just watched the Chosen episode on that exact scene, and Jesus tells that guy, look me in the eye. Look me in the eye. Because the guy was using that as a crutch. That's so good, man. So word of wisdom number 3, you start off with a quote from Harold Green III in his book, Something to Live For. And he says this, and I think this is such a great quote. What's more dangerous? Someone who's not afraid to die, or one who has found everything to live for? And I thought that was interesting because as men, we want to be dangerous. We want to be men of impact. We want to be the tip of the spear. I thought that was interesting that you put that in your chapter on word of wisdom number 3, which is be humble. Can you unpack that for us?
Well, again, that is in and of itself is a powerful quote, and
Yeah.
I think that it's almost like, do you run faster when you're running from something, or do you run faster when you're running towards something, right?
Oh.
And so I think that for me, that it always comes back to that, we want to be that man, right? We want to be that guy, right? But in your humility, right, you show your strength, right?
Mm-hmm.
When there is a lion that knows that it can kill the gazelle, right? And it doesn't have to boast about that, right? The strength of the lion is the strength of the lion. And so I think that for men, we've got to understand that the strength of who we are is wrapped up in what God says we are. But when you don't know who you are, then you want to boast. You want to beat your chest, right? I think Michael Jordan said, let your game speak for you.
Yes.
Right? Let your game speak for you. So let your manhood speak for you. You don't have to be that guy all the time. Sometimes, yeah, right? But you don't have to be that guy. That doesn't have to be your identity. Mm-hmm. And so we teach humility in such a way, and we teach it. So I got a wall, right? You put a wall down, and you put pride on one side and humility on the other, right? And so I tell kids, so now I want you to figure out a way to get through this wall. Well, pride would say, I'm going to punch my way through the wall, right? Humility would say, I'm going to climb over it.
Oh, well, and yeah, humility would say, I'm going to find somebody to help me climb over it, right?
Right.
You continued on page 44 of your book. You said it takes, and I love this quote because we don't get it as men. You talked about a guy who has to, let your game speak for yourself. I would say if you have to tell people you're a man, that's probably a sign that you aren't, right?
Right.
So and you wrote in your book, you said it takes strength to be humble. Humility is letting go of what we want and accepting God's best for our lives. C.S. Lewis said, humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less. And so I just think, I think humility is a powerful, powerful characteristic for a man who really understands who he is. Michael Jordan didn't have to talk smack because he was it. Tom Brady, I'm not a Patriots fan, I'm not a Tampa Bay fan. Tom Brady does not have to say anything because he's the GOAT. He's the GOAT. I mean, there it is. Whether you like him or hate him, you can't argue with the rings.
Exactly.
So when you're humble, you don't have to brag about that when you know who you are. So that's really good, man. So word of wisdom for dads number 4. And I'm not gonna read I've got a quote here, but I'm not gonna read it. I'm just gonna let the word of wisdom hang in the air. I'm gonna let the guys figure it out. I'm gonna let you help us digest it. Here we go, guys. Ready? And I think this goes with number 3. Word of wisdom number 4: learn how to die.
Yeah, learn how to die. And I think that in this piece, I talked about the fact that I've got my own ideas, you got your own ideas, but unless they line up with what God really wants me to do, right, it's really not going to come to pass. And if it does, it won't be fulfilling, right? It won't be able to sustain me. And so learning how to die to myself is what I had to learn how to do. I had to learn how to die to what Kenny believed. Kenny believed that he was going to the NBA, and he believed that he was going to pull his family out of poverty with that, vocation or whatever the case may be. And like I said, I'm so glad God had a different plan, because when I died to what I thought and what I believed, and I really adopted his beliefs and what God says about my life, that's when I really became alive. That's when I really became the best version of myself. Right? But if you never learn how to die to your beliefs and your thinking, right? You run this whole life on your own thinking. And that's a terrible way to be.
Guys, listen to what he just said there. He said, when I died, that's when I finally came alive. Jesus said in John 12:24, unless a kernel of seed dies, it will not produce the crop. And so this is what we're saying, guys. Die to yourself. We have one simple message, Kenny. Here it is. Ready? It's kind of simple man talk. If you want to be your best version, start with radically giving your life to Jesus Christ. It's really simple.
Yeah.
Because once you do that, then you can walk into that best version. So unless you're willing to die, you're going to still hang on to bitterness. You're going to still hang on to the father wounds or the pain that your dad caused you. You're going to hang on to these things that aren't who God made you out to be. So, guys, I think learn how to die could have been number 1, man. I mean, it's just so important to manhood. So word of wisdom number 5, which I think this is great because it's a word of wisdom. And word of wisdom number 5 is embrace wisdom. So I think that would be a massive topic for the young men that you're working with that have no idea what wisdom is because no man modeled it for them.
Right. And I think that, like I said before, you can't go on your own knowledge. You have to look at people who have come before you, and you have to, first of all, you got to know what wisdom is, right?
Yes.
The right application of knowledge consistently, right? And so if you don't know that, then you can take street wisdom and think that, right? You know what I'm saying? And think that's and you walk your whole 30 years with street wisdom. But it's not it's not biblical with has no foundation. And so we implore our young men to embrace wisdom. One, to be able to recognize it for what it is, right? Take truth and know how to examine it, right? So if somebody comes through and they say, you know what, I got to get mine. I'm going to be all about, I got to get mine. And it's going to be all about me. That's not biblical wisdom. You don't embrace that, right? Because I got to get mine creates a selfishness. And then it also creates, when I do get mine, I ain't giving none out. I ain't sharing. I'm not going to practice reciprocity, right? And so all of those things, we try to make sure that, when wisdom comes through, man, you better pick it up. It's like a jewel.
That's really interesting because I believe that word of wisdom number 5 and word of wisdom number 6 really play into it. I'm 55 years old, Kenny, and it seems like you're right around that same age.
Yeah.
And, I hear a lot of guys talking about the millennial generation of men, and I hate that talk. I think we need to, instead of talk about millennials, boomers, busters, Gen Z, we need to talk about the age category they're in. So these millennial guys, they're in their, mid to late 20s into the mid to late 30s. So that time of life is a great time to teach, because you can let go of the entitlement or let go of the unwise decisions or let go of whatever happened in the late teens to early 20s, because life will teach us. And it's like I heard a movie one time. It said it was the TV show Cheers. They walk in, Norm, what's up? He goes, it's a dog eat dog world, and I'm wearing milk bone
underwear.
Remember that? So you must be about my age, man.
Come on, you know that.
I'm wearing milk bone underwear. And so that's what I would tell these young, because we're targeting guys in their late 20s or late 30s, early 40s, and life will teach you. So word of wisdom number 6 is let life teach you. So can you unpack that for us?
I think that, as I said earlier, when I realized that life is not happening to me, it's happening for me, right?
Yes.
And so when you know that and you understand that, you really have a firm foundation and a firm belief that everything that happens, right? He says all things work together, right? Is really going to work out for my benefit. It may not feel like it. It may not go the way that I think it's supposed to go, but everything is going to work for me. And so life is a teacher. Here's my trip to Mississippi. Started off like this. I get to the counter and to check my bag and everything, and the lady says, "Oh, Mr. Joyner, your bag is free." She said, "You must have reached a new status," right? And when I got that, right, that was one of the things that I talked to the teachers about. I said, your status has gone up in this whole COVID time. People see how valuable you are, right? But everything that happened on this trip, right, was a part of when I got an opportunity to be before those 60 teachers. And so whenever I go somewhere, I'm always paying attention.
Yeah.
I'm always paying attention. And so you have to let life teach you, because, those lessons come. And when Jim Rome says, let life touch you, he says, let happy things make you happy. Let sad things make you sad. Feel it, right? Feel the pain, feel the burn, feel the euphoria, right? So you can remember those times, so that when things do get low, you can say, wow, I remember the lesson I learned when I was 19. Right?
Well, speaking of 19, so my kids, all 3 of my sons are college graduates.
Nice.
So I'm really proud of that fact. But it's interesting because when they went through high school, I said, hey, you guess who gets to pay for your car insurance and gas? You do. And so your grandparents bought your rig, so you're going to, and so, but when they got to college, I said, I'm going to pay for your car insurance while you're in college. Well, my 2 oldest ones decided to get speeding tickets now. So then their insurance jumped up to like $200 a month. I said, guess what? I'm no longer paying for your insurance. You're on your own. Because why? Life is a teacher. Life is a teacher. And they fixed their driving, their insurance came down, and lesson learned that they can pass on to their kids. And so I thought that was really powerful. So no, word of wisdom number 7, there's a phrase going around, Kenny. I hear this all the time with the younger generation. Like, they talk about their superpower.
Right.
That's my superpower. And I'm like, and so number 7 is really the superpower. You said this. You said knowledge is the power that makes you a superhero. It is the tool that shines the light on right decision-making. Its insight digs through the darkness of our lives and illuminates the best and most prosperous path for us all. Word of wisdom number 7 is learn to love knowledge.
Knowledge. Learn to love knowledge. And again, I think that this was the piece that I heard a lot when I was growing up. Your education will make a way for you. Your education will make a way for you. And so falling in love, and I know that most educators are lifelong learners. And falling in love with learning and falling in love with knowledge is something that you have to be inspired to do that, right? And I wanted to be that kind of teacher, right? I wanted to make my students fall in love with knowledge, right? And when you don't know something on one day and then you make the connection on that next day, it changes you, right? It changes you. And just teaching our young men that, guess what? If you have some knowledge on Monday and this person doesn't have the knowledge, right? You are ahead of the game. You are ahead of the game. And so what we do is take my fastest runner, right? I put him in the back of the class. I take my slowest runner. I put him in the front of the class. I'm at the front of the class, right? I got $20 in my hand, right? And I say, okay, now the person who can get to me first, right, is the one who can get the $20, right? So, of course, the guy in the back thinks, no, I'm still faster than him. I'm going to get there. And so what we start doing is we start saying, okay, who's got the knowledge? And every time you have knowledge, you take a step forward. If you don't have knowledge, you take a step back. And I want them to see that knowledge will pay off in the end.
Well, so while you're talking, Kenny, I have to say something because you're an educator, right? I'm in ministry, so I'm a communicator, educator, spiritual educator. So when we say love knowledge, I think we need to add a caveat there, right? We need to love truth. So what's the difference between knowledge versus truth? Because I know you're a man of truth. So we want to make sure we're pointing kids to knowledge that is truth, not knowledge that is fake or a lie. So talk to me about this truth component of knowledge.
The truth component of knowledge is where wisdom where the rubber hits the road, basically, right? And that's where the rubber hits the road. And we want to make sure, as you just said, the difference between that is that we want kids to understand that we want them to know their truth. We want them to know the truth of Christ. Yes. And then we want them to be able to dissect that, right? So that if somebody comes and offers them something that is fake, right, that they not only do they know it, but they can say, you know what, I don't want that, right? Why would I accept that? Right? I'm more valuable than the knowledge that you're trying to bring me. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I totally agree.
I think that's a powerful statement right there. I don't want our guys to miss it. You said, I'm more valuable than the knowledge you're trying to bring me. That because I'll tell you what, Kenny, and you're in the education system, you see it all the time. We're teaching kids whether it be the media, whether it be news, whether it be social media, whether it be in our schools, we're teaching kids sometimes things that aren't true. And so kids have to identify what the truth is in all situations. Hey, Kenny, I've heard it in the church. I've heard things taught in church. I'm like, not true. And so, so we have to sift through it. And the best way we do that, well, what is the best way to do that? What, in your opinion, what's the best way for these young boys to do that, to be able to sift through to the truth?
I think you got to start with the standard, and the standard is Christ.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
good.
you got to start with the standard. Because if you don't start with the standard and you start mixing worldly truth, then that's when things kind of we're fighting over semantics. But when you start with God's truth, that's it. That you line everything up with that, and you're like, man, this. You know how we used to take the letter and put it up to the light so we could kind of see through it?
Yeah.
Right? That's what we do. That's what God's truth is, right? You hold everything else up to the light. And when you hold it up to Christ, you can clearly see, like, this doesn't measure up, right?
Yeah.
So,
it's funny. You made me laugh just now. I have spoken to two 20-somethings in the last month who did not know how to mail a letter.
wow. Isn't that something?
Oh, well, our generation killed the checkbook. Nobody balances the checkbook anymore.
Nobody.
So, hey, Kenny, I want to go with one more, and I want to break this podcast into 2 parts. So I want to end this part with a word of wisdom number 8. And you know what? I would imagine, Kenny, when you're working with young boys, I don't think it matters, young boys, teenagers, adults. I think word of wisdom number 8 is huge. Huge. You said in your book, your friends will ultimately determine your future, and you must choose them wisely. Your friends can change your destiny. That's powerful. They can alter the plan that God has for you if you allow them to. That's even more powerful. I'm not saying they can keep you from your destiny, but they can certainly put you on the wrong path. And word of wisdom, which is so good, is friends equal future. Will you unpack that?
Well, again, that goes to my own life. I was in an early situation where I was hanging out with the wrong people, right? And I was headed in a dire direction that would have landed me in prison or worse, right? Because these guys were going after some things that I thought I wanted, false truth, right? And I was walking with them because I thought I was one of them, but I wasn't. I didn't know who I was. So when you don't know who you are, and it's kids on the block, guess where you're going to go? You're going to go with the kids on the block. And so that piece is crucial because we don't get to choose our family. Mm-hmm. Whatever family you're born into, that's what family you're born into. But we do get to choose our friends, and your friends can literally put you in the grave, or they can put you on the mountaintop. And because of my friends, that's why I am where I am, right? They always tease me. They say, man, I'm sure glad you're using your gift of speaking for good, because before, yeah, you could talk us into a whole lot of trouble, man. I could talk myself into a fight in a minute, man. So, man. So, yeah.
That's so good. Well, a word of wisdom, man, is you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but don't pick your friend's nose, right? So
that's right.
Anyway, hey, so word of wisdom number 1, know who you are. Number 2, learn to forgive. Number 3, be humble. Number 4, learn how to die. Number 5, embrace wisdom. Number 6, let life teach you. Number 7, learn to love knowledge. Number 8, friends equal future. Guys, let's get our boots on the ground. Let's put some traction on the treads. This week, I want you to pick one of those that we just went through. There are 8 choices. I want you to teach one of those to a young boy. Could be one of your children, could be a nephew, could be a grandson, could be a boy in your Sunday school class that you're teaching. Teach one of those. Go out of your way to teach that to a young boy. So, hey, Kenny, thanks so much for coming on the show. We're going to break this into 2 parts, but how can guys get a hold of your book?
They can go right on Amazon. Yep, go right on Amazon and pick up a copy, man. I've just, again, I never even thought I would sell. I bought the first 10 because I didn't think it was going to sell.
That's awesome. So book sales are going well?
Well, book sales are going pretty good. Yeah, you know what? I just wanted to, as my best friend said, he said, look, just write the book. Yep. It'll end up in the right hands. Just write the book. And so my assignment is done. It's complete. And so I just want to get it in the right hands.
Well, and the funny part is I reached out to you because of my picture. And when I realized, oh, this guy's a follower of Jesus, I was like, yes, Oh, he's an author? Yes. So God help. You know what? I'm telling you what, man. Even sometimes a guy like me can find some crumbs, and it leads me in the right direction. So thank you, Lord, for that. So, hey, guys, want to make sure you check out his book. It's a great book, and we're going to be writing more about it in our Equipping Blast for Men that you can pick up on. info@meninthearena.org. Dale, take us home, brother.
Yeah, guys, I want you to head on over to meninthearena.org and order your copy of Strong Men, Dangerous Times, 5 Essentials Every Man Must Possess to Change His World. And, guys, again, we'd love to get those reviews from you to celebrate what God's doing in your life. Until next time, feel the wet sand on the arena floor, hear the deafening roar of the crowd, taste the sweetness of victory, smell the stench of battle, get in the game, get dirty, grind it out, and
be a man.
You've been listening to the Men in the Arena podcast. If you hunger to be your best version, then join thousands of men from around the world in our Men in the Arena forum on Facebook. This is the best place to have open discussions around the topic of biblical manhood. Make sure to explore our website at meninthearena.org, sign up for the weekly Equipping Blast, and take advantage of our many free resources designed to help you become your best version of a man. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Men in the Arena podcast. Remember, when a man gets it, everyone wins.